Hi everyone, welcome back. I hope you had a great week. This week in Level E, we're going to be covering lessons 81 through 84, and you will need worksheet 54, A or B, through worksheets 57, warm-up practice sheets 5 and 6, the Casio calculator, the math card games book, your basic number cards deck, and the corner cards deck. Lesson 81 is a review. And so after that, you can play the corners game, which is A9 in the math card games book. We also have a blog and a video about it. But this game is a variation of that, whereby the top and bottom numbers become dollars and the left and right numbers are cents. So go ahead and try this fun variation. Let's go ahead and look at the review and see if your child misses any of the questions. These are lessons that you could go back and review. Okay, if your child missed any of the oral questions, let's look at those first. Question number 1, you can review lesson 49. Question 2, you could review lessons 4 and 19. And question 3, you could review lesson 59. In the Write the Answers section, review lesson 50 for number 1. Review lesson 74 for number 2, and review lesson 75 for number 3. In the Do the Arithmetic section, the addition problem could be reviewed in lesson 13. The subtraction problem could be reviewed in lessons 21 and 22. The multiplication problem can be reviewed in lesson 59, and the short division problem can be reviewed in lesson 68. In the Solve the Problem question, review lessons 49 and 55. Put these fractions in order. You can review lessons 51, 52, 56, and 79. In the Circle the Numbers that are greater than 1, review lessons 74, 75, and 79. In Circle the Prime Numbers, review lesson 61. And then for the Write the Greater Than, Less Than, or Equal To section, review lesson 79. For lesson 82, there is a correction if your book was printed before December 28th of 2017. We will be working with order of operations while using a calculator. After your child completes the first multivide on practice sheet number 5, write down the 2 equations in the lesson book. We're going to go ahead and take a look at what your child will be doing with those. Okay, so here are the 2 equations. Notice, and I wouldn't necessarily point this out to your child in the beginning, but these parentheses aren't really necessary because the natural order of operations would have you multiply first anyway. So 3 times 4 is 12, plus 2 is 14. So the answer for n equals 14. M also equals 14 because even though you don't have parentheses, you need to do the multiplication first. So the rest of the lesson, your child is going to be using the Casio calculator. If you do not happen to have that Casio SL-450S calculator that came with the Right Start Math set, the RS2 math set, I would test out these procedures that you're going to be using in these lessons and just test them to see if it functions the same way as the lesson says that the calculator should. Because if it doesn't, then it will make little sense to your child. So please read the explanations before starting this lesson, as there are some really good hints and advice. And remember, those explanations are in the right-hand column of each page. So once your child has explored with the calculator, go ahead and give him or her the worksheet, but stop after each box to discuss the answers. The questions are provided in the lesson book. Once the worksheet is complete, ask the in conclusion questions and play any game of your choice. In lesson 83, there are also some corrections in your book if it was printed before August 19th of 2016. So if that's the case, please follow the link that I have provided in the description. After your child completes the multivide, hand your child the calculator and follow the procedures described in the lesson book. The dropping of the final 0 does not happen on more sophisticated calculators. So for example, if your child is using your cell phone calculator, it will include a 0. Either way, it does not matter because 3.6 and 3.60 are the same amount. The main point is that your child should know how to write the number, including the trailing 0 for dollars and cents, and what it will look like on a calculator that does not include the trailing 0. I like to challenge my children to solve some of these problems in their heads before using the calculator. I like to be assured that my kids can do it without a calculator. So if you're like me, go ahead and challenge them to try to do it without the calculator first. You can finish up with the in conclusion questions, and if you still have time, you can also choose to play a game. In lesson 84, there is also another correction if your book was printed before August 19th of 2016. So in this lesson, we're going to be working with decimals on a number line. The multivide warm-up is on practice sheet 6. And then let's take a look at what they're talking about in the book. This is lesson 84, page 162, 2 ways of looking at numbers.
So the lesson has you asking your child, writing this out and asking your child, 23 equals how many tens and how many ones? Okay, so your child should know that 23 or 210, 3 equals 2 tens and 3 ones. Next, you're asking how many ones are there in 23? This is typically how people think of numbers unless they're taught to think in tens and ones. So it's not wrong. There are 23 ones, but we want our kids to realize, and this is why we used the math way of naming numbers, we want them to realize that there's tens and ones. It makes it easier to break it up from mental addition. But it's good to know both of these. So now we're moving on. The reason why we're starting off with this is to get to this point. If we have 45 hundredths, so 0.45, how many tenths is that? Okay, so it's 4 tenths and 5 hundredths, which can also be seen as 45 hundredths. So this up here really parallels what's happening in the tenths and hundredths down here.
So next we're moving on to the comparing decimals exercise, and that's fairly self-explanatory. If your child is getting stuck, it's okay to write the trailing zeros to make it more obvious, but don't do it if it's not necessary. For example, I'll just write it on, hold it up because this is a real short example. You can write 0.2 as 0.20, and that's to be compared with 0.17. So this is what that would look like. So if they're having trouble with this 0.2, go ahead and show them it can be also written as 0.20, and then they can compare that to 0.17. That sometimes makes it clearer for the kids. All right, then have your child complete the worksheet, check the answers, and clarify any mistakes. If your child doesn't notice that the answers to problem 4 actually spell out a word, ask them if they see anything special about those answers. Play the game Hardest Fraction War, which is game F23 in the Math Card Games book. Notice that this is a variation of the game in the book. So the variation is actually listed in your lesson. So follow the rules in the lesson book. Each player will be forming proper fractions with the basic number cards.
So for example, if I have 2 people playing and this person turns over a 7 and an 8, that person can make the fraction 7/8. And say this person turns over a 9 and an 8. Go ahead and slip the lower number to be the numerator. So now we are trying to decide who has more. Unless they have their fraction chart with them, this is kind of difficult to figure out. And what the lesson is asking them to do is to use their calculator. So when they use their calculator, 7/8 becomes 0.875. And for 8/9, it's 0.889. So then they'll be able to see very easily that 0.889 is more than 0.875. Okay, so this person would gather all the cards.
Okay, so I hope that little demonstration helped you to understand the directions for the Hardest Fraction War game. So now you can ask the in conclusion question, and you're done for this week. I'll see you next time. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.